All right, we are live for episode 15, and we are currently trying to get Michael into the stream. So we might be delayed a minute or two. But episode 15 is Michael Rodriguez, who just popped up on my screen. So let's see if we can get him in here.
Hey, can you hear me?
All right. Yes, I can.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, sorry I'm a little late. I'm just trying to set up the headphones and stuff like that. Yeah,
No,
thanks
you're
for
good to
having
go.
me.
For sure. So this is episode 15, and I have Michael Rodriguez of Desert Gem Herps.
Hello,
When I
everybody.
when I first set this up, you were one of the first people on my list, and your Instagram is nuts. I follow all your
Thanks,
stuff.
dude.
I talk about your stuff all the time to other
Thanks,
people.
man. Appreciate it.
Um,
Appreciate it.
so I reached out to you. You were
hmm
super good to go, and then told me you wanted to wait because you were going to get some new setups, which is very
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah. I just had a
And
lot of stuff going on.
uh, which I was cool that we started talking. You were very receptive, and you were like, "Oh, wait a little bit. I'm going to get so many cool things." And then I was already watching your Instagram, which was cool anyway. And then it's just
hmm
continual updates of cool stuff. So just kind of take folks through and let them know what Desert Gem Herps is and what all you're keeping. And
Okay.
let's bring them into how awesome this is.
Okay, for sure. Well, my name is Mike Rodriguez. Once again, I've been keeping reptiles since I was 18. I'm 32 now, so I'll be 33 this October. So it's been a good minute. I've been keeping reptiles. I started off with the, basic, not basic, but like the standard reptile, like the newcomer. My first reptile was a bearded dragon. That was the first thing like that kind of started, like kind of like my whole like exotic animal things was a bearded dragon. I got into scorpions, tarantulas, kind of had a little bit of everything in the beginning, and then
Okay.
one time I went to this local herb shop. It's right here in Orange County in California. It's called Reptile Island, and I saw this huge female Molly Uromastyx, and I fell in love with Euros. I was just like, that's literally the coolest lizard I ever seen. It's just she was so huge and big, and I was just like in awe, like of her, just of how big she was and her built everything. And I fell in love with the tail. That was like the number one thing that was just like attracted me to like to want to work with the species. Was just like how like majestic they looked, you know. And then once I did more research and I found out that they're that they didn't require eating bugs and everything, because I was young, and I was just like I was just getting into a bunch of reptiles, and like I had monitors, I had just different things, and I was just like, it just interested me a lot. That I was like, you know what, like I don't have to like get into kind of the feeders thing because I just really wasn't into like wanting to raise my own feeders. Like, don't get me
Yep.
wrong, like I love monitors, I love snakes, everything. Like I had my own good collection of boa constrictors, some monitors, things like that, and they're amazing, amazing, amazing herps. But the number one thing that just attracted me to the Euros was is that they were herbivores. So I was just like, this is really really cool, everything. And then I've been keeping animals since I was a kid. Now I was born and raised in Mexico, so like I've had animals my entire life since I was a little kid. My mom, she's the one that got me into pets. I want to say like maybe since I was like 3 or 4 years old. So I mean, I had just a bunch of crazy pets when I was in Mexico, like from fish, the crab, scorpion, like just crazy little things like that. And then, once I came over here and I became older, that's when I got into the reptiles and everything like that.
Cool.
And yeah, it was really cool, man. It's been a great journey. I've had a good life. I've been very blessed to be around a lot of great animals and whatnot. And it's just like a really, really good, just a how do you say, like a passion. I've always loved animals my entire life. And then discovering the Euros, a few years back. This was like in 2007. Yeah, so like
Okay.
right for my 19th birthday, um, it was they had an ornate Uromastyx in at that same local herb shop, and I just me like the whole time because like I was like 18 when I got into the reptiles, but I didn't want to like jump right into a Euro because like I didn't feel comfortable with it. I was just like, you know what, like I don't want to be like one of those other keepers that was just like, oh, I have the money, I'm spontaneous. Like I'm just gonna totally just jump into the species without knowing anything about it. And then just like that, I didn't think that was the right thing to do. So I was like, you know what, I kind of want to just like do a lot of research, ask a few breeders, what their experience, like what could I do, to like their husbandry, like to learn husbandry back then, and I came in at a time and was in 2007, yeah, 2006, 2007. So back then, Doug Dix was very active. Lindsey Pike was very active.
For
I got
sure.
to meet, I got to like talk to a lot of people, a lot of old school pioneer breeders. And it was amazing. It was amazing. There was another breeder that I used to talk to a lot. I used to bug him a ton. His name was Noel Alt. He was located here in California, and he bred all kinds of Euros outdoors. And I learned a ton from him. I felt kind of bad because I would bug Doug a lot. I would bug Lindsay a lot. I would bug Noel a lot. But I just so thankful to them because I learned a lot from them in the beginning. And for my 19th birthday, my first Euro I ended up getting was an ornate Euro. I ended up getting a Uromastyx ornata, an adult male,
That's
back
killer.
then. And it was just like, I was just so blessed, just to be able to find one back then. He was just like this pretty good sized teal colored male. And I was just like, wow, this is really, really cool. And like I just really enjoyed them, and because I had a bunch of other herps at the time too. Like I was really, really big into the boa constrictors back then, early when I first started off, and
Okay.
I kind of just started shying away from them. Like a few years later on, like I had a bunch of like boas back then, but I also started like growing my Euro collection. Um, but then I had like a life changing moment, like around 2012, 2013. I got diagnosed with some health issues, so I had to kind of had to like I had to change kind of like my course on keeping herps, and
Okay.
I didn't want to want to keep any more boas and stuff like that. I just felt like it was just going to be too physically demanding for the upkeep for my physical condition the way I was back then. So I was like, you know what, I'm really just going to decide on keeping Euros, and I really, really got heavily into it. Like I want to say like, like 2000, gosh, like 2013, no, like around 2014, I really, really started getting into Euros. And luckily I was really, really blessed, back then, because the way the availability is now with Uromastyx are pretty much impossible to find now.
Yeah.
I was still fortunate enough, I'm not saying that I encourage wild caught, not at all. But back then, Uromastyx were not as difficult to acquire as they are now. Now it's just like, it's insane. It's literally insane. Like, when I first started off, the most common Euros back then, they still are the Saharan Uromastyx JRI. And there was also Maliensis, and back then, like when I didn't know as many people as I know now. And, you would see at a local herb shop. I mean, I'm pretty sure like everybody would see a Mali Uromastyx, from the ranging anywhere between $75 to $150, which I think
Hmm.
was like the standard price back then, like the, you know, late 2000s, early 2010s and everything like that. And like now it's like, you can't even find a Mali, Uromastyx Maliensis. You just can't find it. You just can't find it, ever since they closed the importation on them. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I know it was in the 2010s. Now there's very few people breeding them. I mean, I haven't successfully bred them yet, but there's a few good friends that have been breeding them in the country. So I'm hoping to be able to breed those guys. But yeah, so it just shows you like how how do you say, like how politics have really changed. A lot of availability and things like that. And sad to say that the animals are the ones that pay the price for it. But yeah, so that's like the main thing I want to say. Like I was very blessed that when I first started off keeping these animals, they were available. They were a little more not easily available, but they were like a little more easier to find, I guess you would say.
For sure.
Like I said, you just can't find them at all. It's just very sadly, imports started coming in, and it's sad to say, like, very few of those actually even survive to make it to breeding programs and
Right.
survive to make it to long-term captive, that even, live more than a year. Sad to say, not many do at all. It's just very, very unfortunate. It's a very unfortunate thing. But that's the truth of that's the honest truth about imports. If you don't know what you're doing, and even then when you know what you're doing, even for the most experienced breeders, I mean, I've lost plenty of animals that, like, imports that looking great one day, and the next thing you know, like I've had animals where I switched them just to a simple, same setup, almost identical setup, but I switched them to another cage and they just take a total dive, for the worse. Some animals, they don't seem to mind the difference, and then some other animals, they just don't like the change at all whatsoever. Uromastyx are very, very fragile. They are not like, any other herp that I've kept, that's for sure. It's not like when I was keeping, black throat monitors, when I was keeping white throat monitors. They don't kind of seem to don't mind, especially when you upgrade or like change your enclosure or whatnot. But Uromastyx, even when it's healthy, I mean, I've noticed that especially with the imports, they don't just don't like change at all. Some of them just, sad to say, they don't adjust to the environment that great. And so I've been
Well,
working with. No,
I think
sorry.
a
Go
lot
ahead.
of people. I think a lot of people get. I don't know. I guess get confused with animals like that because they come from some extreme places, and so
Yes.
people think that they can tolerate extreme things, but
Hmm.
the where they're at is extreme to just where I'm at. It's still very consistent for where they're at. There aren't
Yes.
big changes. It's just consistently way hotter and drier than where I live.
Oh
So
yeah.
everybody
That's.
everybody gets the that's it's so extreme and so different and
Mm,
they think that the change is so dramatic and
hmm.
and it would be if you or I flew there and got off the plane.
Yeah.
But then when you hung out for the next 6 months, it's just like that all the time there, and
Yeah.
it is still very consistent despite the fact that the differences between our two places are so extreme.
Yeah.
So I've noticed the same thing. So like Mallees were very common when I was in college.
Hmm.
I graduated in 2005 and I had some Mallees, and it was always the Gary, which here's your oranges and yellows. Those were like the cheapy import ones,
Yeah.
and then they just dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And I have one Mallee now, and I found one male orange Gary, and it I immediately bought the orange male when I found him because even that was like I just don't see that even at trade shows, and you do get like import tables that have
Yeah.
bins of clearly imported animals and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I you just don't ever see stuff like that,
Yeah.
and it
Especially
was
especially a
what
healthy, especially a healthy
right,
one.
yeah,
Sad to
that
say.
aren't totally sketchy.
Yeah.
It
That's just that sad thing.
and that was it. Always just kind of felt like you know Mallees were a herbivorous savanna monitor, right? They came in
Hmm.
by the truckload. They're kind of tan and okay looking, and they seem like something that's probably a beginner pet, but is not a beginner pet. They
No,
get
not at
bought.
all.
They get bought in the boatload, and
Yes.
then they just fade into the ether, and you never see them again.
Yeah.
You know, and then people who are quote unquote serious in the hobby
Yeah.
and essentially do a little more research and spend a little more money
Yeah.
usually get a prettier species of Uromastyx.
Yeah.
That's because there's so many beautiful
Yes. Yeah.
options,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
That totally agree.
and they
Totally agree.
kind
And
of fell to the wayside.
yeah, you know what the funny thing is? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love like the really, really colorful species like Ornata. I mean, that's like probably like the number one species that everybody wants to go after is the Ornata.
Sure.
Um, I do you know what the funny thing is for me? I actually like the more bigger guys, like the more darker colored ones, like the Flaviofasciata, which are very similar to Maliensis. And
Yes.
they kind of went through the same thing with that happened to the Maliensis. It's like when I first saw Flaviofasciata, it was Doug Dix's table at the NRBC show in September of like 2000. Gosh, I want to say 2007. It was like my first herp show that I ever went to, and that's the first time I met Doug. And I saw Flavies for the very first time. He had babies, captive bred babies that he had hatched out that year, and I just fell in love with those things. I was like, dude, these things are so freaking cool. Like it's like a molly, but they get bigger and they have huge white bands. Like how much more of a cooler lizard would you not want to keep? And I get it. Like I like the ornata too. I didn't have the experience back then with the fly fasciata, and it's just like I don't know what it is about just the bigger Euros. It just don't get me wrong. I love the smaller guys. Like they're amazing. Ornata, Philby, Ocelata, Yemenensis. Like the list goes on. They're amazing. They're very very beautiful. I keep a good amount of those as well. But the ones that really 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 seem to like have like a really really grasp on my heart are just like the bigger guys. The medium sized ones like the Moroccans, Nigroventis, Flavies. I have the white locality. I have the orange locality. I don't know. I just love the way that they are. They're just so like they're bigger. They're like just more bulkier. Like they're just more built, like they're built like more tankish, and I seem to be more like those are kind of seem my favorite. I know a lot of people they can't keep them due to the size that you need to provide for them.
Right.
They are a bit way bigger Uromastyx in comparison to, an Ocelota. Ocelota, they max out about, I want to say like maybe like 10 to 12 inches, something like that. So you can get away, with like a standard 4-footer for a single adult. Obviously the bigger the better. But like my flabbies, I keep my adult flabbies, I keep them in 6-footers. So I keep that's what I was doing earlier this year. I just upgraded all my adults flabbies. I put them in 6-foot long cages by 3 feet deep by 18 inches tall. So not everybody has the room to be able to provide for that. So it's like, I get it. Like, everybody kind of wants to keep something smaller and everything. But, like I tell everybody, it's like, hey, well, you know what? Your Ornata might be a little bit smaller, but keep in mind, those species, they like to climb too. So it's like, you can provide a lot of height for those species too, because like Ornata, Yemenensis, Philby, like I have those guys in tall cages, and those guys are nuts. Any kind of room you give them a 5-6 foot long cage, they're going to take advantage of every single inch of that cage that you give them. And same thing with height wise too. You give them plenty of room height wise to want to venture, to climb up or things like that. And they'll use every single inch of it as well too. So that's why I kind of tell everybody is, if you're going to kind of keep like the smaller guys, kind of try to provide for them a lot of height, because like they love the height. And but yeah, so yeah, anyway, I ventured off about that. I just I kind of once I start talking about Euros, it's like I could kind of just like spaz out about it.
That's the whole idea.
And, yeah. So, but they're great.
What I think is funny is that I probably 3/4 of the species that you just listed, most folks don't even know exist. Like Euros to me they're like a weird niche for some reason, in that people see the Gary, the oranges and yellows, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. It's very bright. It's very eye catching.
Yeah.
And then it's always kind of on the import table off to the side, and it's a herbivore. It's a little weird, and it catches their eye, but doesn't ever seem to be an animal that's purchased very often.
Yeah.
And
then, it's sad to say. Yeah.
And then, but every now and again, they'll be floating through social media or something, and you'll see one of these other species, and it's like, well, wait a minute. I thought there was an orange one, a yellow one, and then the brown one that you always see in the pet store. And it always seemed like all of the other species, and there are tons of them, were just like miscellaneous. Like it just, unless you were a nerd and you've read a bunch of lizard books or had magazines, or for me, it was the King Snake forums back in the day. Seeing a lot of the old school folks there. And it wasn't even that I was necessarily looking for Uromastyx. I was a lot of mine originally finding out about Uromastyx was talking to folks on the forums who were building desert enclosures and trying to maintain temps and things like that. And those were the folks who always were struggling with that if they didn't live on the West Coast. And so I started talking to those people, and it was why, well, what are you trying to build it for? Like, oh, I'm into Euros. And then it kind of progressed from there. But if you just frequented reptile shows or something like that, or that was your exposure to the hobby, I mean, you may never come across them. Depending on where you live in the country, nobody there breeds them. If you are in the American Southeast, a little bit on the East Coast, I mean, you might just literally never see the lizard. So it just seemed a lot rarer, despite the fact that a lot of West Coast folks were having success, which sucked.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that you're so right. That's how I started. Like when I first got into like the Euros, it's so crazy. Like I just feel like I was like, holy crap, I totally forgot about king snake. But yeah, that's when I first started off. I was like, like I started like just researching on Euros. I would go through Google and everything like that, but there wasn't so much information about them. And then king snake back then was like wow, there's just so much information about so many different herps and everything. And I was just in awe. Like, I know there was like a Uromastyx section on king snake back then for all these old school breeders. Like, it was just like, holy crap, like this is insane. I learned like so much. Like, I was just like, wow, like I was just in awe. I was just like, sometimes I would just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go on the website again. I just want to see like the pictures of these Euros again, and
Yep.
I would just stare at them, and I would just be like, man, those things are so freaking cool. Like it's just like you said, you know, because like you would go to the standard, you would go to the local herb shop, or you would go to the conventions and whatnot, and you would see, you know, the Saharans, you would see the Malienses, and back then, like, I'm very fortunate. I'm in Southern California, so it's
Right.
a very populated area. We have there's a huge herb community here, huge. It's insane. And you know what the funny thing is? I'm here in Southern California, and I don't know a lot of people that keep Euros, which is just strange, right? Because we have amazing weather for it here and
Right.
whatnot. But I don't personally know a lot of people that keep Euros. You know, and I get it. It's the space, the electricity. I tried keeping Euros one summer outside. They did okay. The only kind of drawback that I saw about that is they can't be kept outside in the wintertime. So when I brought them back in when it got cold, they kind of got stressed out, and I was just like, you know what, it's just not worth it. Like, yeah, I saved money on electricity. Yeah, it was great for the animals. You know, they got the great natural sun. They did okay. They were eating and everything whatnot. But then like some of them, like when they came back indoors for the winter, they acclimated just perfectly fine. Like it didn't even seem to bother them. And then I had some other animals that were a little older, and they just did not want to like. They were having a really hard time acclimating back to indoors, like the indoors and everything. So I was just like, you know what, I just don't want to. I don't want to chance it, like, you know, keeping them outdoors for the summer and then bringing them back in. I'm not
Right.
saying there's nothing wrong with it. There's totally nothing wrong with people doing that. You know, I tip my hat towards, you know, people that are able to do that. But just for me personally, I just didn't really seem to have good success with, you know, I just feel like it just caused too much stress for them. You know, and like, you know, like we're talking about earlier, like Uromastyx, they're very fragile. And
Right.
the last thing you want to do is cause additional stress, you know, because, you know, I had them in these outdoor pens, with these wooden frames on top with, like, you know, they're wired up, everything, and, you know, they're doing good, everything. But I just, you know, obviously, you know, when they're outside and everything, you know, have a pretty good sized backyard, everything, you know, they see there's a lot of stuff that flies over and everything. And luckily, I didn't lose any animals back then. But it's just, I just felt like, you know what, I don't want to cause any kind of stress like that for these animals. If back then they were rare, let alone now. Now they're just like even like way more
Right.
rare to, you know, to acquire now. Like if I were to lose an animal now, it's just like, oh, it's gonna hurt me very, you know, emotionally and everything went on. It's like I just can't replace it. And yeah, not that I'm saying that they're, you know, you can replace it easily. You can't at all. But like it's just not worth I just wouldn't want to try it outdoors and everything, why not? But no, yeah, back to what we were saying earlier about the different species. Like you're right. A lot of people don't know the species that are actually out there. You know, because like you said, like, you know, they see the Saharans and they just think in general that's only Uromastyx that there is available, or that there is in general. It's just a Saharan Uromastyx, and they're an amazing species. Don't get me wrong. They're a very beautiful species when they're, you know, when they're long-term captive acclimated animals, or they're captive born. You know, they're super bright yellow. Like, you know, they could be just like fluorescent yellow, or they could be extremely red orange. They're beautiful species. But because they come in these large numbers, people kind of get like a bad vibe about it. Like they're like, oh well, you know, they just don't look healthy. Like they don't get attracted to them because like they always see them 90 to 99% of the time they see them sickly dying, and
Right.
that's a very unfortunate event and everything. And like I feel like I was very fortunate enough that when I came into the hobby, there was these amazing breeders that were still active. You know, like Lindsay and Doug, Noel, and plenty of other breeders that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. And it's just like I was still fortunate enough where they were producing animals back then, like species that you can't find now available, like
Right.
as you could back then. And so I was able to learn very quickly and everything whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate. Like back then, I started like I remember the first Euros I got into was obviously Ornata, and after the Ornata that I got into was white flaviofasciata. That was my second species. I really like. I was like, you know what, like if I'm gonna like try to breed one species, this is the one species I want to try to breed first, and it was the white flavies back then. And then I was fortunate enough to get like green negriventus, orange negriventus, and gosh, I can't remember the list. I work with, you know, different species. Right, I work with so many different species. I can't remember list by order which ones were the ones after. But I want to say it might have been Ocelota. Back then, Ocelota are amazing. You know, they're a smaller species, and they're really great. I mean, as imports, you know, they kind of be tend to be a little very shy. Some imports, when they've been in captivity, they can adjust to you, whatnot. But in my experience, like I have a pair right now that are imports that came in a year ago, and they eat great for me and everything, but they're not very fond of me. Like, I mean, I don't really handle them unless I really have to. I kind of just,
Okay.
clean their cage, feed them, and let them be on their own. Because when I try to handle them, I can see they get very squirmy, whatnot. So it's like, yeah, I don't want to stress them out. But I've had also a lot of though that are captive bred from a few friends that I've raised over, and gosh, they're super social. It's like a total opposite. It doesn't even feel like it's the same species. They're
Right.
very, very social. They jump to you. You open up the cage. You have food in your hand. They're very, very social. Like, they'll jump up, crawl up your arm if you let them. Everything. It's an amazing species. And it's crazy because it's the exact same species, but it just shows you the difference between, a wild caught and a captive bred animal. But don't get me
For
wrong,
sure.
though. There can be some wild caught animals that have been in captivity for a long time that kind of do learn to tolerate us and do learn to kind of like trust us a little bit. And uh, seem to, want to, like hang out with you for a little bit. And then I've had captive bred animals that are total opposite. Like, it's 100% legit captive bred, but this thing doesn't even want to be anywhere near you.
Yeah.
I've had, and I don't know how many Euros I have like that that are captive bred legit, and it's just like I handle them and everything whatnot, but they just don't want to be nowhere near me. So I'm just like, okay, as long as I see him eating and I don't see him sick and everything like that whatnot, I'll kind of just let him be and I'll give him time, because that's kind of like the number one thing I always tell people with Uromastyx. You want to have patience with Euros. If you don't have patience, I kind of tell them, like, maybe you should look into another reptile, because with Euros you have to be patient. That's the number one thing. You have to be patient with Euros. People think that within a year that they'll be an adult size, and it's just like they'll grow a lot within the first year, but they're not going to be full grown, and they're not going to have their adult colors within 1 year. There's some exceptional animals that, yeah, within a year they'll be showing a ton of color, but it's not the same in comparison to, like, a 3 to 4 year old animal that will have more color, whatnot. But also, there's a
Sure.
lot of factors that play into this. Like, it could be, um, if it's like a captive bred breeder, different bloodlines. Yeah, like the different genes. Obviously, the genes play a huge role into it. So, but yeah, it's just it's crazy that, like I tend to tell people, like, if you're looking for something that, that's going to be full grown within a year, definitely not Uromastyx, because Euros, they don't stop growing. They just, as they age, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and their colors get better. It's not like these other reptiles that, they kind of like they kind of dole out within as they age. With
Right.
Euros, I just feel like as they get older, they just more colors come out of them more, and it's just, it's that's what makes them so unique and amazing. They're very, very beautiful animals and whatnot.
I think it's crazy that you went from kind of a diverse, normal starter collection of just stuff that caught your interest
Yes.
to ornate Flavifasciata, and
Yeah.
then and like rabbit hole down your,
Yeah.
like, that's pretty cool that it
Yeah.
those are some, even now, fairly obscure species,
Yes.
and you just both feet first, like, I got it. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. No, honestly, like I said, I was very, very fortunate that back then, I was able to acquire species that, like, you can't get anymore. You just cannot find anymore, and especially different genetics, different from different breeders back then. And, like, like, it's funny, like you mentioned earlier about the Maliensis. Back then they were so commonly available. I always had this gut feeling that was going to happen to the white Flavia fasciata. Everyone's just like, oh, like, I would talk to different people and they're like, oh, they're cool, but it's just a molly that just has white bands. That's all it is. Like, there's nothing really unique about it. And I'm just like, and I tell them, I said, you know what, like, everybody has a different opinion, and I know, like, there's different keepers out there that do enjoy the smaller guys that are more colorful, and there's people out there that are like me that enjoy the bigger guys. Yeah, they're attracted to the colors and everything and whatnot, but just seeing, like, this huge lizard. The males. Don't get me wrong. There's some females too that are the Flavia fasciata, that are just very, very dark, that have, like, these white speckles on them, or like these white bands on them. And I told him, I said, you know what, I just knew the way things were going back then, like in the late 2000s, and they were just getting harder and harder to find. I started building my collection, and I got really, really serious into it. That's when back then I sold a lot of my other herps. I got rid of my tegus, I got rid of my monitors and everything. I said, you know what, like, I don't want to do like things like where I'm just like, you know what, I don't want to live in regret where like, man, I should have got this stuff, and then I'm just like years later, I'm just like, man, why didn't I do it? Like I had the opportunity to do it. Why didn't I do it? You know, that's one thing I like. I don't. I like. I kind of think like that. Like I don't want to live in regret. Um, so like you said, you know, I kind of just dove straight in, and I was like, you know what, like I'm just gonna really focus on the species. And I really I've been working with Flavies for 10, 11 years now. So I was
That's
given
awesome.
opportunity to work with Flavies since back then, and I'm just very blessed and very thankful that since back then to be working with them and whatnot. And yeah, because like now that I think about it now, it's like if I were to try to look for different genetics of white fly fasciata right now, it's pretty much impossible. And it's
Right.
pretty much impossible right now because I mean, like since I've been keeping Euros, I've only seen white fly fasciata. To my knowledge, I've only seen them imported like maybe like twice. That's it. I think the
Right.
one time I saw them was like 2000. Gosh, I can't remember, man. I want to say like maybe like 2011, and then like the other time I ever saw them imported was like maybe like 2015. And since then, I haven't ever seen white Flavius fasciata imports ever come in again. You know, which in a way it's good, in a way it's bad. You know, because it's like you don't have to worry about them constantly flooding the market, devaluing the animal, people not appreciating them and whatnot. But then it's hard for like serious keepers and breeders, like you know, like me and my peers that you know that keep these beautiful animals. That it's just like if we want to add you know more genetics or whatnot, we just can't. You know, so it's like I tell a lot of people that are working with the species like you know, do your best to take care of them, you know, because for you know, this is all this is it. That's going to be coming in ever again, you know, you know, like right now, like I have a pretty good sized colony of white fly fasciatas, and I've been producing them right now for the past few years. So it's just like it's sad that like you know that they've declined in species, but like that's why like I feel like it's like kind of like my responsibility to kind of keep them going, just because I just feel like you know I was sold a few babies back in the day, and that's just like you know what like it got that's what started my addiction, you know, with the Euros was just like, man, like, you know what, like I felt like I was like, you know, like honored, like that people sold me these certain babies and you know, not, you know, because there's a lot of people that buy them just as pets. And then there's a lot of people that, you know, that actually want to keep the, you know, the bloodlines going in the community and whatnot. And I was very lucky that I was able to start breeding them and everything. So yeah, but no, it's great. Now I think back about it, you know, it's a great species. It's a great species. And yeah, like I was mentioning, you know, I just feel like that was just one species that was just kind of like fade off into the abyss, you know, because it's just like, you know, the way that they are and everything, they're just gonna be like the Molliensis, you know, and nowadays like everyone's just looking for mollies. And you know, I have a lot of people messaging me like, oh, do you have any Molliensis? Do you have any Molliensis? And I'm just like, sorry to say, like, you know, all I have right now, you know, they're not even adults yet. They're not even breeding size. All I have is
Right.
like a young trio, a captive bred trio from a breeder from back in Georgia. And then I have a young sub-adult pair from like the last time that they were imported. And, you know, like they're not even breeding size yet. So I'm hoping that they breed for me by next year. But it's just, yeah, that's the one thing about Euros is like it takes a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of space, a lot of time, a lot of effort that you have to put into it. Because, you know, like you're saying, like, you know, the availability is just, as time goes by, you know, they just, you know, if people don't really get seriously into it, they're just gonna just fade off, you know,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of species that, you know, that are being produced available that are being produced yearly. And then there's other species that are just pretty much instinct in the hobby now. You know, like one of the species that you pretty much non-existent now is like the Somali Uromastyx, the McFadden. You know, that I think they used to come in like the early 2000s. They look very similar to Ornate and Ornata and Ocelata,
Hmm.
but you can't see them anymore, you know, because they come from Somalia. So, you know, last I checked, there's
Yeah.
nothing coming out of Somalia. So,
The politics there are on
yeah,
our side. Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
it
it's
is
just,
weird where like import stuff gets a bad rap in the hobby on occasion.
yeah,
Uh, just you know, it it's kind of the nature of the game. There are going to be some losses, and statistics aren't always on our side for animal survival, and it's difficult. And it's one of those things where we really warn off new people. Like,
yeah,
hey, if you're new, it's not the route for you, and it always traps them because they're cheaper,
yeah,
and
yes,
you know, and it's
yes,
something that we constantly struggle with. But
yes,
for guys like you, it we we really need that. You know,
yeah,
and it doesn't have to be a truckload.
No.
But those handful that come in,
Yeah.
because importation is stressful, and we're going to lose a couple here and
Yes.
there, and it it
Yeah.
does take some skill to rehydrate things and medicate and stuff like that. And
Yes.
but it's we catch these genetic bottlenecks where there's only like 6 in the whole country. Okay, well at
Yeah.
some point we might run into some inbreeding problems, things like we start to have a need for a little bit of diversity in
Yes.
people's collections, and the only way for us to get it is to import stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's that tightrope of I don't want 1,000 of them to come in and just go
Yeah.
to a big box pet store.
Exactly.
If we could get like a couple of dozen and get them in the hands of people that
Yeah.
mean that are doing the right thing,
Yeah.
well then maybe in a couple 3 years, then you can go to a reptile show. And then if you're
Yeah.
a new person, rock out, get yourself one, no big deal.
Yeah.
And it's just convincing folks to wait the
Yeah.
3 or 5 years and let these guys do it, and you'll be good. And it's really hard to.
Yeah, but even then, like you say, it's not as easy with Euros because like sometimes you could have everything perfectly for them, and it doesn't mean that always that the pair is going to breed for you. Like you could
Right.
just do everything perfectly, and you don't get nothing. You get no results. So it's just like there's so many different factors that can happen in the way that like where they will breed for you, but then the eggs can be bad, or then you get good eggs and then the eggs can mold out, and it's just like it's just so many things that can happen and happen and happen and happen. Like the chances of actually producing good, healthy animals, it's very hard. Very, very, very hard. That's why like I always praise like my peers, I always praise like my friends and everything, like when they're producing Euros, because I tell them, I said, you have no idea like how hard it is. Like it's not easy. Because if it was easy, you would see them at pet shops. You would see them more
Right.
available at with
For sure.
at the shows and everything. But let's be honest, majority, if not all the Euros on the shows, they're all imports. They're
Yeah.
all imports, So it's just like it's very, very rarely that breeders, have, like I mean, I've been lucky enough where I've vended at the show. The last show I vended at was at the Anaheim Super Show last year before COVID. It was right before COVID. It was in January 2020. And then I took a few things and everything, and it's just like it was insane. It was insane that like I went to the show and like it was cool. Like there's so many different people have like all different herps and everything. But I was like the only person at the show that had Euros there,
I'm
and
sure.
I took a few things and everything, and they sold immediately right away. And I was really, really looking forward to the shows last year, but obviously COVID happened. And everybody knows how that went out. Didn't go for the better, went for the worse. So it's just like that's why I just feel like these animals need to be in the right hands. Like with certain species, especially, certain species, like I tell everybody, like when they're, I'm not, I don't discourage people, but like I tell them when they're new into the Euros, I said, please do your research. Don't just kind of just skim through a Google ad or like a Google article and just be like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm just like, no,
Right.
like for reals, like it takes a long time to know like what to do and to learn. And the most important thing, as much as you read and everything, you're not going to learn it until you do it hands on. And like I tell a lot of people, like like try to read as much as you can, but you also like I tell them, like that's like the one good thing I want to say about social media now, is that a lot of newcomers have the access to a lot of great resources online to
For
learning a
sure.
lot of new husbandry. Like I wish this was available. Social media, like there was no social media. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was, but I mean, it wasn't like as
Yeah. Not
so
like
many things
this.
were not like this, not the way it is now. Like back when I started, it's like, gosh, I remember I was just like, skimming through things online where I could just find articles or like I would just find like old like like oh, God, I can't remember. I want to say I think on King Snake there was one of Randall Gray where he produced like Venti back in the early '90s. So
Mm-hmm.
I would just read stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, that's really, really like it's really cool, like just
We
to learn like how
actually
all these different breeders.
we just
Um,
had somebody in the comments that was asking whatever happened with the rainbow Uromastyx. And
oh
that's
wow,
exactly what you were just talking about. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't
So
seen anything on Benti, and I don't even know. I mean, it probably
oh
was forum days. I don't think I've seen anything in recent.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, did I remember last time rainbows were imported? Was the year my daughter was born because I have a female. I still have a female right now, so she's the same age as like she wants to say like the same age as my daughter. So like I think I said like 2013 was the last time that Yemenenses were, imported from the wild, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people are aware of what's going on with Yemen right now. So I don't think anything's going to be coming out of Yemen anytime
Right.
soon. It's sad to
And that is
say.
the thing that, quite a few of these species come from places that are not
War
stable
torn.
right now.
I know,
And,
it's sad. Very
and
sad.
especially for our country, would be
Yeah.
difficult to access, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things that like, I try to tell newer people that, and everybody's, back in the day, and how European collections were a lot different from ours, and how things progressed there. And
Yeah.
it did have a lot to do with access, especially
Yes.
for sub-Saharan species, Arabian Peninsula species.
Yes.
Our the way things have gone politically, our country has struggled to maintain relationships with those places.
Yes.
And then a
Yes.
ton of really cool herps that we all really like.
Yeah, and they're
You
just
know,
pretty much impossible.
yeah,
And there's only a few people that are breeding them. Like me, I haven't successfully hatched a clutch. Last time I got a clutch from them was, I want to say, like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. So right now I had a pair lock up for me. I want to say maybe like a few weeks ago now. So I'm hoping that my female drops, gives me eggs. So I'm just like, oh my god, because there's only a few people that are actually producing them in the country right now.
right.
So one of my really really good friends, Scott, he's up in Northern California. Scott Wilson, he's produced Yemenensis. Philip, Arizona, really really good guy, really great friend. He's producing them. And there's another guy back in New York, Matt Verse. He's producing them as well too. I want to say those are the ones I just know at the top of my head that have successfully produced them in America. There's a few other people I know have them, but they haven't had good luck hatching them out. One thing is breeding, another thing is actually hatching out the animals. So
Right.
I'm hoping that this year I'm hoping this year my girl's able to give me some eggs, some good eggs, because it's just like, I have right now I have I want to say two adult pairs. I have two adult pairs. I have my oldest pair. They locked up, like I said, a few weeks ago. So I'm just waiting. I'm waiting any day now to see, hopefully within this next week or two, if that's one thing about Euros. Like with some females, you can't even tell they're gravid, and they're gravid. And next thing you know, the last few days or like the last week, they just blow up like massively with eggs, and they just lay the eggs. And then there's some females that are totally obvious, like for the weeks on them before they lay, that they're just, they're totally gravid. Like today I had a female Philby, which is from the Arabian Peninsula. They're from the western part of Saudi Arabia, like the northern part of going towards Israel. The Uromastyx Philby, which is a subspecies of Ornata. I had a female lay for me today. It was her first time ever laying, so she gave me a clutch of 5 today. So I'm excited about that because she came in as an import 3 years ago. So she was a very, very young animal. I was able to buy her I was able to buy a very, very small group of these like juvie Philbies that came in. And, I just, I kept them. I was like, you know what, I'm going to keep this little, very small group. Because a few years ago, I kind of downsized. I got rid of a lot of species because I had to, because of health issues. And then when I was given the opportunity again to kind of like, build up my little bit of numbers on certain species, I jumped on it. So I'm very, very happy right now that, I got a clutch today of the Philbies. So I was able to hatch out, a baby from them a year ago. So I'm hoping this year again, I hope the Euro gods bless me with letting me hatch out a few more of those, that's another beautiful, very beautiful species that comes from, the Arabian Peninsula.
Sure.
So yeah, so I mean, they're awesome. Like I said, the Euros are awesome. I'm very, very lucky that I'm able to work with those. Like, there's the Philbies, there's the rainbows, just the ones I'm thinking from the Arabian Peninsula. The Microlepis, which is a subspecies of the Aegypticus. So actually, I do have an adult colony of those guys too. I got bad eggs this year. Unfortunately, I was very, very bummed out about it because last year I did get good eggs and I did hatch out a few babies. I kept them here for future breeders. This year my eggs, they were no good. It's just I was really, really bummed out. I was just like, not the stuff that I really wanted to see, but it's out of your control. Some things you just can't control.
Right.
It's just I saw the male going after the female. The same thing like that happened last year, but unfortunately it didn't work out this year. So I was like, it's okay. There's next year. So I'm hoping that next year my adults are able to go. They're able to breed, and then I have so I have an adult trio. Then I'm also having a subadult trio. They're still young. So I want to say they're like maybe 3-4 years old. So they're getting near that size now to be able to breed. So I'm hoping those guys, and that's another amazing species. Like I mentioned to you earlier. That's what I kind of tend to keep more, are the bigger guys. Just because I'm just so drawn to like how freaking huge these things are. Micros. Not a lot of people know about micros. Some people do, some people really don't. Just because everybody thinks about Egyptians, Euros, and they think about these like huge, elephant gray looking Egypticus, which don't get me wrong, they're amazing animals. They're beautiful. I have a few young animals that I'm raising up. But just the micros are just crazy. And like I tell everybody, I said they get the same size as an Egypticus, but they're like super, like when they're done shedding, they're like super like light. Like they look like kind of like a silver gold. It's hard to explain. Like when they're young, they have like, it's just crazy, right? It's like one of those Euros where like they kind of look good when they're shedding. Because I know some Euros when they're shedding, they get very, very dark and cloudy. And
Yep.
micros when they're shedding, when they're young, like their colors, like their skin is gold. It's literally really, really crazy. And they have like a really, really beautiful pattern on their back. Some adults keep it. Some adults, it kind of fades out and everything, whatnot.
Okay.
But no, they're honestly, they're an amazing species, dude. It's like I was able to work with those guys. It was one of those species like I always wanted to work with since I first got into Euros. And then when I was able to get into them, I want to say like, oh my God, 6-7 years ago, I bought my first one. I was just like, wow, they're freaking cool. I got my first male. He was just like, maybe I want to say like maybe like 14, 15 inches back then. And I just fell in love with the species. And from there, I was able to build my numbers up. From there, I was able to get this, my adult female. And they're just insane. They're literally insane. Like it's really hard to explain. I mean, you could tell I really geek out on just talking about the micros. They're really, really cool. They're really, really, I couldn't even explain it. Yeah, but they're amazing. They're amazing. I just wish there were more available in the hobby, so people could appreciate them a little bit more and everything like that. So I'm trying. I'm really, really trying. I'm hoping I'm able to get good eggs next year and whatnot. So that way I'm able to spread some of them on some peers and whatnot, some other breeders, because they're just so freaking rare, right now that I know of just in American herpiculture. I don't
Sure.
know anybody else that even has any. I want to say there's like maybe 2 other friends that I know in America. No, maybe like 3. There's 3 other people that have them in the country. 3 to 4 other people that have them in the country. I have a friend, Jason. He's up in Pennsylvania right now. He has the clutch right now. It's incubating. I want to say like over 20 eggs right now. So I wish him good luck that he's able to hatch those guys out, because that's going to be really, really cool. Guys, because it's like one of those species where like back in the day, like people bred them and it's like, oh, cool. They're just an Egypticus that looks like an ornate, But,
Right.
you fast forward now where it's like, gosh, we haven't seen a Egypticus. I mean, a microlepis available in such a long time. It's like, wow, that's freaking amazing. And there's such a beautiful species and everything like that.
So is it weird? Like, I think about Uromastyx, okay, and you talk about like Lindsay and Doug and folks like
yeah.
that, and it was a very small group of people, right,
Mm-hmm.
that influenced that part of herpeticulture, and then from mainstream herpeticulture, Uromastyx kind of faded a little bit. There's always been a handful of people that were still doing it, but
Yeah.
they got older, they progressed in the hobby, or got out, or just different things happened, and
Yes.
the number of people who were keeping things got very small, and the number of
Mm-hmm.
species that were even available got small. Political
Yes.
things happen. We can't import. Things get sketchy from time to time globally,
Mm-hmm.
and now there are a fair number of species in the U.S., but in really small numbers, with like 10 or 12 total people. Like, is it weird that like you and 4 of your friends are the people keeping microlepis in the United States? Like, one person you just talked about has a clutch, and if they all hatched,
Yeah.
that would like triple the number of animals in the country. Like, that's
Yeah.
weird. Like,
Yeah.
that's, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably just said
Literally,
that in a
that's
way that puts a lot of pressure on you, but like I would feel like, oh my God,
yeah.
I'm the guy. I cannot mess this up. Like, it just,
Yeah.
it
No,
kind of is
it's
that
a lot.
way.
Trust me, there's some days where I'm just like, it gets to me very, very mentally. I'm just like, oh my God, this it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure because it's like I'm doing, I know for a fact I'm doing my best to like to keep them going, to keep them healthy, everything. So it's like I'm very lucky that I have there's two great vets near me. I'm in Southern Cal, like I said, I'm very fortunate. I'm in Southern California, so there's two vets near me. Dr. Greek, which is he's in Yorba Linda, and then there's another one, Dr. Moore. She's in Fullerton. So you know, if anything ever happens, I'm very blessed. I have two vets right here nearby. Um,
Nice.
but it's just like you said, there's so much pressure when it's such a rare species because it's just like it gets you very, very mentally, you know, you know, big reward, but it's also big risk. And it's also like, it's a lot, man. It gets very, 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 um, it could be overwhelming at times. That's why kind of like, sometimes I kind of go MIA on social media, just because it's like, I already have a lot of personal issues going on with my health. And then it's just like, my animals are, it's crazy. Like, it's my hobby, but it's also my therapy at the same time. My animals, they really, really keep me busy. They keep me going.
I get
When I
it.
just want to, yeah, when I just kind of want to just escape the world, I just, you know, I just hang out with my animals and that's all I do, you know, especially Euros. Euros are just so awesome. Like you could just, like, I go to my garage because that's where I have most of all my breeders are in my garage.
Okay.
I literally customize my garage where it's like my whole left side of my garage, I have all my big stacks of cages, and then in the middle I have my new 6-foot stacks of PVC, and then on my far right side, I had some others. I had this other enclosures I got rid of. Right now, all I have in my right side of my garage is just my adult Philbies right now, which are laying for me. I just have some, you know, 6 footers in there, and so
So,
yeah,
because
that
of where you live, do you
uh-huh.
think that keeping it in the garage does that help you with the power bills and stuff during the warm months, to where you don't have to, you're not pushing so hard to heat them
Yeah,
because of where you live?
yeah, honestly, I don't use a lot of electricity in their cages. Just because I'm in
Okay.
Southern California. Like today, it was about 91 today. So I mean, I'm only using like I want to say 50 to 75 watts of heat per cage,
Oh wow.
which is not bad at all because like some like especially my PVC cages, my new PVC cages, that I get the basking gradient, which you know I get about 120 to 130, and then I also have a T5 fixture in there for UVB. So the
Okay.
UVB with the heat, it radiates enough ambient. My ambient temperatures are perfect. You know, I don't have to worry about my ambient temperatures ever being too cold. My ambient
Nice.
temperatures are always warm. And the same thing, you know, in the wintertime, I don't provide any, you know, even at nighttime right now in the summertime, I don't have to worry about providing night heat. But, you know, I'm very fortunate. And I have that luxury that I'm in Southern California where I don't have to provide, like, I don't have to worry, like, oh man, you know what? I got to go put a ceramic heat emitter in their enclosure. Like, you know, with me, it's just like, no, my garage right now, um, you know, when the lights go off, my garage, especially right now, like, you know, it's early summer. It's going to be early summer. Gosh, I want to say my garage at night stays about like no colder than 80 degrees at night. Like
Okay.
when I go in the morning, like that's my thermostat. I check it out. The lowest it's at right now is like maybe like 79 to 80 right now. So that's what my garage stays at, you know, right now.
Nice.
You know, we're still it's not even that hot right now where I'm at. You
Right.
know, like by Tuesday it's gonna be about 100 to 105. So I know it's gonna be warmer there too. It's gonna be one of those really, really warm days. Don't get me wrong, do I have enclosures in my whole house? My whole house is it's pretty crazy. I mean, most of my breeders are in my garage, and
Okay.
then I have a few yearlings. I have a few babies that I'm raising up, and they're in my bedroom because I have like a pretty big bedroom.
Okay.
So it's just like I live with lizards. Literally, it's just it's crazy. But yeah, but I'm very, very fortunate. Like I said, I'm very fortunate that I don't have to spend so much electricity per cage,
Right.
just because with the, you know, the way I have older fixtures installed inside the cages. You know, like I always
Okay.
tell it to everybody, like if you're gonna you know, invest into a Uromastyx cage, you always want to go with like a wooden enclosure, PVC enclosure. You know, don't I kind of tell everybody like kind of shy away from melamine. Melamine, it's great, everything, it's affordable, but it's extremely heavy and it doesn't last as long. So like I tell them, I say if you can invest in a plywood cage, it's going to be lighter wood and it's going to last you a lot more longer. Just because I feel like, you know, melamine, it just deteriorates. I've gone through so many melamine cages myself. They're
Mm-hmm.
great, don't get me wrong, but it's just God, they're so freaking heavy. They are
Yep.
so freaking heavy right now. So like right now, this past what was it, earlier this year, I was able to acquire my new 8-footers. So I got these new 8-footers. They're 8 feet long by 4 feet deep, and they're 2 feet tall. Those are for my micros right there. They're
Wow.
huge enclosures, but yeah, they need a lot of space. They need a lot of space, and
That's awesome.
gosh, yeah, they need a lot of. I mean, they're big Euros, and they use
Sure.
every
Yeah.
single inch of it, so every single inch of it and everything. So, like I said, like I don't really use so much electricity because since I have so many cages stacked on top of each other, the heat
Well,
radiates throughout my entire garage.
yeah.
So it's just yeah, and summertime it's pretty warm in there. So
I
so that's
bet.
one thing for sure. Yeah, one thing for sure. Summertime it's pretty warm. I mean, that's why I don't ever worry. Like in the wintertime when it's like, I want to say people in California call it cold. I know people back in the east or central. That's nothing to you guys. I mean, our winter nights. I mean, the coldest it gets here in the winter. Because I live in Orange County, which is like right between Los Angeles and San Diego.
Yep.
So gosh, our winter it drops like maybe into the 40s, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like the coldest. I mean, sometimes it might drop into like the high 30s, 40s, but that's pretty much that's our winter. That's our winter nights. That's it.
Is that something where you're having to supplement at nighttime then
No,
in the garage
no.
or no? No.
So, surprisingly or not, I still don't even put any kind of a heat in their cages because
That's awesome.
my garage is like I have it. It's pretty. I have so many cages and everything. Like during the daytime, because in the wintertime, when I cut back on the light hours, everything. I still put on the lights during the daytime.
Okay.
So the heat stays in my garage, the cages and everything. So what I do in the wintertime is I cover up my cages.
Oh, okay.
I cover them up. I have these tarps, and I cover up the cages and everything like that. So when the lights go off, the cages they stay warm, and it doesn't get, I have a temp gun and I check, like there's been times where like when I first started doing it, I'm just like, oh my god, I would be dead worried, like I don't want them to get a respiratory infection or anything like that.
Right.
There would be times it would be 12 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning when I was first starting to do it, and I was just like dead worried, like I don't want, especially for like some of the species that are like more of the inland species, they could kind of tolerate more of the cold.
Okay.
But like the more coastal species like Yemenensis, Philby, those guys, their winters aren't that cold.
Right.
It rarely gets below 70 degrees for them in the wintertime. Maybe the coldest it might get is like, mid 60s, something like that. So it's just like you really start freaking out when it gets cold, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want them to get a respiratory infection. So like there'd be times where I would go at night and I would just go check, the cages, check the temps for them and everything, and they were okay. They were still like, it might have been colder outside, but inside my cages it was still like in the mid 60s. Rarely did it ever drop inside my cages into the low 60s. Very rarely, but majority of the time it would get like the mid 60s to like the the 70s. So like it's okay. The Euros, they could tolerate that, and that's why I kind of tell everybody, like the Uromastyx, they could tolerate down. You really don't have to supplement heat for them at night unless it drops below 60 degrees. That's
Okay.
where they're sleeping at. Because how it is. Like it could be the temperature could be like the outside, but doesn't where they sleep at. That's kind of where you want to kind of read the temperature. So the last thing you want to do is have them get any kind of respiratory infection, because that's not fun.
For sure.
For any kind of animal like that. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that I'm in Southern California, and I think that plays maybe a huge role in my luck, and I've had good luck in raising these animals, just because I'm blessed and being in such a warm area.
Right.
So these guys, like they thrive. In the summertime, they're just eating nonstop. Like right now, it's warm. They're eating for me every single day right now. Just right now, it's just like every single day. Like I just fed these guys yesterday, and today, again, like I was looking at it when I was in the garage. I was like, their bowls were completely empty. And I fed them earlier today, and like within an hour that I came back, I went to go run an errand, and I came back, and they're just like waiting again for food. And I'm just like, dude, these guys are they're eating my wallet out on just on how hungry is.
Right.
But there's it's good. It's a good thing. It's a good problem to have. Because at least if they're eating, they're healthy, they're growing. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So it's great. It's a good thing and whatnot.
That's awesome. So, are you? So you mentioned the food bowl part.
Mhm.
Do you? I mean, I would think that you do because you just said it. But do you have Do you have success with using a bowl like a station? This is where the food is. We go here to eat out of this bowl.
Yeah. What I do is I have their feeding bowls like in the very front of the garage. Not the garage. I'm sorry. I say things I don't mean sometimes. In the very front of their cage.
Okay.
So like I have front slide glass doors and closures. So what I do is I have like these terracotta pots, or I just use these old like these old older dishes for them,
Okay.
and I just fill up the bowl right in the front of the cage. You know, it's just literally right as soon as you open up the enclosure, the glass, it's right there in the front, and you know, it kind of like that's kind of where I interact with them. Like the ones that do tolerate me, they just run up to me right away. Like the ones that I've seen that you know aren't scared of me whatsoever. Like maybe like my micros, my adult guys. I mean, these guys just come charging. Like even when I have like I'm taking the food out of the you know out of these huge containers, you know, because you know I have so many animals that I pretty much have to go through those huge aluminum trays. That's what you know I cut up with food. You know when I have to feed
Oh,
these guys.
okay.
And when I'm feeding these guys, you know, while it's in the air, we're like literally while I'm taking them out of the trays to their bowls, you know, it could be in midair, and these guys are like already jumping up, like trying to like feed me, and yeah, I feel like in a way it's kind of good that I kind of like do that because it kind of gets them used to me and not so shy, you know, and yeah, they already know like when I'm walking by, like some of them like you know like I'm not even feeding them, and they just see me walk by and they're like, hey, you know what, you're the guy that feeds us, like you know, what are you gonna feed us or something like that? I'm like, hey, I just fed you. Like I literally just fed you right now.
Yep.
But it's great. It's great. But you know, one thing I do go through a lot of food. I go through a lot of food with them, especially the big guys, especially the big guys. You know, like I mean, what I feed the micros alone. I mean, what I feed the micros, my adult micros, and what I feed my younger ones, I could probably feed maybe 20, 30 other euros just alone. That's why I
Wow.
tell everybody when you're going to invest and when you really want a gypticus or any bigger euro, I said, be prepared to feed a lot. I said, especially if you're buying a few of them, you know, I said, don't think that this animal is just going to eat a little bit. Like, you know, when summer's here and spring, you know, like when late spring, summer's here, they eat a lot. You know, that's one thing, you know, they eat a lot, you know, I mean, and I offer them a lot of greens. I grow a few flowers here, and
Oh, okay.
these guys, they you know, you can't go a day without, you know, them, you know, not wanting to eat, you know? So,
Right.
no, they definitely do eat a lot, you know. So pretty much like what I have one feeding tray for like all my other smaller guys. One tray I could feed all the smaller guys, and then I have one specific, you know, food bowl for just for the bigger guys alone because it's just like
Wow.
they eat a lot. They eat a lot. So
That's
the same way
crazy.
yeah, you know, that's just, you know, and they're not even full grown yet, you know, these guys are still, you know, they're still young adults. Like my micros are out there. I want to say like maybe they're about like 20, 22 inches, something like that, like 20 to 22 inches. So it's like, you know, and micros and Egypticus, you know, like they say that they get about 24 to 30 inches. So it's like, you know, they're still small. So I could just
Right.
imagine if they were to get bigger, you know, their appetites are going to be bigger too. So it's just like, geez, you know, like, yeah, I definitely need to start. I have a lot of flowers that I'm growing right now.
Okay.
But I definitely need to start planting my own greens because, God, I'm always taking trips to the grocery store. Luckily, I live close to a grocery store that I'm able to get a lot of the greens. Well, I get all my greens there. I get dandelions, I get, you know, endive, escarole, radicchio, and then I rotate out with collard greens, turnip greens, just all different kinds of greens. That's what I mostly feed. You know, pretty much the whole diet. What I feed them is just greens. That's what I kind
Okay.
of tell everybody. You know, just kind of stick to greens, flowers. You know, there's a lot of. I'm not really too much into the dry food, like lentils and whatnot. I mean, I offered it to them, but it's not really something I do like on a daily. It's kind of like as of a treat, like, you know, once in a
Okay.
while. You know, bee pollen's great. That's another great thing you can offer them too. But like for the most part, I tell everybody, you know, just stick to the greens. Like that's the leafy greens. That's the main thing you want to, you know, give them to, and stuff like that and whatnot.
So we did have Anita asked, do you ever recommend feeding insects? Like as a
Honestly,
once in a while, like a treat type of thing?
I don't do it.
Okay.
I have a few friends that do it. I'm not going to say anything bad about it because I have done it in the past. It'd be like I'd be a liar to say, oh, I never done it before. I have done it in the past. I don't do it anymore though. Like I mean, it's one of those things where like certain species in the wild, like there's this great Uromastyx book. I want to say it came out maybe like in 2007. It's from Thomas Wilms. It's a great book. Like I always, everybody that always messages me and asks me like, hey, you know what? Um, you know, I want to learn this. I want to learn that about Euros. And I always tell them, hey, the number one thing I always recommend them to is that, hey, go to Amazon and order this book. It's the Uromastyx book. It's good. You're going to learn pretty much everything that you want to know about the different species about Uromastyx. I said that way you know like where they come from, you know, where their native habitat is, where they're coming from, and everything whatnot. And but so I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the question? I just spaced out right now. Sorry, it's just
No, she was just asking if about feeding insects. So like
the insects.
my
Yeah,
Mally, my Mally will show interest. My Gary could care. Like I've tried it and he didn't.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nope, doesn't care at all.
Yeah. I want to say the ones that I did seem to kind of go for it was like Ocelota. I tried it with Ocelota a few while back. I've tried it with my Flavies. I tried it maybe like one or two Flavies, and they didn't really seem to care for it. But it depends kind of on the species. Like I know in some certain species, like they say, like in the wild, like they've seen like their in their gut fauna or anything like that. It was like less than like 5%, like maybe like 1 to 2% that they saw insect matter in them. And then there's a few other ones that that did have insects in their in their gut fauna and whatnot. But I don't really seem to offer the bug. I don't really feel like the necessity to. I just feel like, you know what, if I have access to these greens and whatnot, I don't really feel a necessity where I have to feed the bugs. But I'm not going to say it's wrong to, as long as you're not doing it as every single every single day to do it. I'm not telling somebody like, oh, you know what, go to the pet store once a week and feed them bugs. No, don't do that. But if you're going to offer it to them, like maybe like a once in a year thing, I don't think it's going to hurt it. I mean, obviously it's not like if you're doing it like a staple diet, like, oh, you have, feed it bugs, and it's getting like some kind of renal damage down the road or whatnot. But I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, you know what, don't feed it bugs or whatnot. It's kind of like one of those hot topic debates with Euros, like the bathing issue. Everybody has this thing like, oh, don't bathe your Uromastyx, and it's just like, that's kind of like one of those touchy subjects where it's like, certain keepers are going to agree with it and other keepers are not going to agree with it. Like me personally, like I said, like, you know what, I have tried feeding bugs before. Do I recommend it? I really don't. But I'm not going to sit here and bash somebody for it. Like if they offer it to them, like maybe once in a while, it's okay. I don't think it's going to kill the animal. It's not like it's feeding them every single day, but
right.
Just don't make it a bad habit. Like I said, the same thing goes with the bathing.
The Thomas Wilms book that you mentioned, for folks who are in the live chat, I put that in the live chat, and then for folks who will listen later, I will put it. I'll put it in the show notes so they know what you're talking about.
Awesome.
Yeah,
no, it's a great book.
That book's awesome. Yeah,
it's a great book. I recommend to everybody. I told everybody, if you want to learn about Euros, it has so much information. I mean, it's been out already for, I want to say, like, what now? We're now 14 years or something like that. 14, 15 years.
Yeah,
and it's
been
just
quite a while. Yeah.
And it's insane. Like, I mean, honestly, I still read it from time to time, and when I want to go back and like just try to like read something about it, and it's crazy. It's really, really crazy. It has so much great information. It's probably still the best book that you could purchase to learn about them. And it's great. I mean, I can't say anything negative about it whatsoever. I mean, I know I learned a lot of personally, I learned a lot about it on the book and everything and whatnot, especially learning a lot of the different species of the Euros.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely one of those where you're flipping through and I didn't know that existed.
yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy, right?
Sure.
It's crazy. It's definitely a great read.
So you mentioned your enclosures a little bit, and I was wondering, what do you use for substrate for your Uromastyx?
I've used different substrates in the past. Right now, currently, I switched over to this beach sand. It's this California Monterey beach sand. So I've been talking to my friend Scott Wilson for 10 years now. And I finally met him in person about a year ago. I took a trip up to San Francisco. I just said, you know what, I'm just going to go up there and everything. And I was lucky enough that he invited me over to his place. And he has an amazing collection of Euros. I mean, it's just insane. He has a beautiful collection of Uromastyx, and I learned a lot. And I've been bugging Scott for years, and I asked, and he uses a substrate of the beach. It's the sand, and he goes, oh yeah, he goes, I get it here locally. So I asked him, I was like, hey, so where'd you get it? Long story short, he showed me the bag. It's this natural sand from here in California. It's obviously it gets cleaned out, everything. Like I've had a few friends message me like, oh, you think I can just go to the beach and just use that? And I'm just like, well, yeah, you can, but I think you have to process it, like make sure you don't have any, like, some beaches around here, they're not that clean. So, I tell them, like, you don't want to do that. It's the last thing you want to do. So I've recently switched over to this sand, and so far I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. It doesn't have that really, really heavy dust like with play sand. Play sand, it's okay, but when you wash it out, a lot of that dust, you like literally like when you buy play sand, you could put it in a bucket and you could put the holes on top of it, and you will literally just see just this cloud of dust just like float up to the top of the water. And when you drain out the thing, you just you just see all that dust, while you're draining it. And it's just like, if that's not good for us to breathe, I don't think that's good for the animals to be breathing. And me personally, since I have health issues, I have really, really bad asthma. That stuff was killing me. It was literally killing me breathing. Like, I mean, I used to dread doing the bedding change. I was just like, oh my God, it was really bad. It got really, really bad to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, man, there's gotta be something else. But I was thinking like, it's not for what's best for me. It's what's best for the animal. So I got rid of the play sand. And then, in the past I've also used, different soils. I would use soil mixed with sand. I like that. It did good. But currently right now, what I'm using right now is I'm using this new, California Monterey Beach sand, and it's from Lapis Luster. It's a 1/20th. So I still wash it when I get it. Nothing comes out of it. Nothing comes out of it. Like literally, the one drawback of it is like when you wash it and you put it, in the enclosure, it's gonna smell like the beach, literally. But I mean, once once midday comes around and and it's pretty hot, the sand dries out. Like, I mean, just yesterday, like right now I'm still doing bedding changes right now on some younger animals that I'm now putting them on bedding, because last year they were still kind of young, so I didn't have them on any kind of bedding. And then this year now I'm putting them on bedding. And what I do is I wash it out, and then I have these huge buckets outside, on the side of my house, and I just let them sit out there in the sun for about a day, especially right now because it's so freaking hot. So within a day, it's pretty much already dry anyway. And then I put it into the enclosure, and I like it. I like it a lot. Honestly, I like it really a lot. The animals don't seem to mind everything. So just between the sand, and then I use a lot of decorations, bricks, tile, different flagstone. There's a lot of things that you could use. I could tell everybody kind of just you kind of want to keep it simple. Don't make it too difficult, but you do want to make the animal comfortable, but you don't want to make it too difficult either, where where just kind of the animal's just gonna kind of hide. So my enclosures are very, very simple. I don't have like the nothing too difficult, at least for these little animals. I've had experiences where I feel like if I offered too many things, some animals, they wouldn't come out. They would just kind of tend to hide. So I just would make things a little bit more like easier for them. And they did come out. They would come out and stuff like that would. I'm sorry. And stuff like that went out. But yeah, but no, definitely the California beach sand right now. That's what I switched over to, and I've, this is the first year I've used it. So I started using it earlier this year, and so far I've liked it. So I mean, it hasn't been a full season I've been using it, but I mean, my friend, he's been using it for years, and I trust him. So I mean, he's had great success with it. He's had great luck with it, and lucky for me that we're in the same state. He's about 8 hours up north of me. I was able to acquire some of it, down here in Southern California, and I like it. I've had a few friends out of state message me like, "Hey, where can I get this stuff? Like, I see you that you posted it, that that you're using it and that you like it." And I told him the only place that I was able to find from it was at a construction place, White Cap. And I told him, I said, you're gonna have to look for it, because I don't know where in your state they're gonna carry it. Like, that's just where it's available for me, but I don't know where you're gonna find it. Yeah, I don't know where you're gonna find it for you. I mean, for me, I've had good luck with it and everything, so it's good. I like it, and I don't have to worry about when I open up the cage that I'm just getting this waft of crazy dust, sand thrown right into my face. Especially with some animals where, I'm feeding them, and some of them don't mind. They don't throw the sand on my face, and then there's the other animals where I open the cage, and man, it's just like Speedy Gonzalez just runs across the cage, and I just get this dust storm just thrown right at me. So it has its drive. That's one thing about place, and I definitely don't miss. That stuff was just totally killer. But no, definitely the beach sand. I definitely recommend that for anybody that's in California or local that doesn't mind making the trip or whatnot. I'm pretty sure you can get out of state. I just don't know personally, off the top of my head, where they're able to acquire it.
And then Ross asks, how often do you change bedding? I assume like cleaning purposes change bedding.
Yeah, cleaning. I want to say like Oh gosh, so see, like this, I just bought it right now, so I probably won't change it out probably for like a few months, maybe till like next year. Because I sift through it. I'm sifting through it like pretty much daily right now. So I'm
Okay.
going through it a lot. And what I could do is I could probably like what you can do is you could take out the sand and then you could just kind of clean it yourself. There's a lot of things you could do to kind of reuse the bedding. But yeah, I'd probably say like for another person, maybe every 3 to 6 months you want to change out your bedding. I mean, I don't see that's the thing. I don't know. It depends because everyone's enclosures are kind of different. So I don't know like what he's mixing with his everyone's bedding could be different. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because I know back in the day when I used to use soil and peat moss, I would, gosh, I would, that would last me for a while. Then I would probably, I used to change that stuff like maybe every 2 to 3 months. But that stuff was so dusty. I used to use peat moss with the soil and sand, and that stuff was just insanely
Yeah,
dusty.
I'm not a fan. The dust gets me. I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have really bad allergies and asthma, so that stuff's totally killer. It's
Yeah.
totally killer. So right now that I'm on the beach sand, the Euros seem to be doing good with it and everything like that. So yeah, I probably won't change it now for a few months, and then definitely from there, I definitely have to do a whole new bedding change and
Right.
everything like that. Why not?
And I know you mentioned it just a little bit when we were
Hmm.
talking about the insect thing, that folks debate that. It's similar to debating the bathing thing.
Yeah,
Anita actually asked, um,
yeah, sure.
what what is your opinion of the bathing, or what do you
Oh,
think of
the
of
bathing.
that debate?
Honestly, to me, I'll be honest with you. I've been bathing Euros since I've been keeping them. And I've never, ever, ever had any issues bathing the Uromastyx. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say, oh, I bathe my Uromastyx every single day. That's not true. That's not true at all. I've only ever bathed like Euro, like unless it really, really needed it to. It's very, don't get me wrong, it is stressful to the animal, but there's a lot of things that are stressful to the animal too. Like, there's been imports that I have acquired that have come in extremely, extremely underweight, dehydrated. And, like, I mean, I know subcute fluids is probably the best way to do it, but to sit here and kind of say subcute fluids doesn't stress them out either, it's a needle going inside of them. It's going to stress them out also as well. It could be the same thing as giving them oral fluids. It's going to stress out the animal as well. And, you kind of want to see like what would be the less stressful thing to them. And I don't like I tell people, if you're going to, soak an animal, you don't want to make it swim. It's not like I'm telling you, oh, get a freaking little kiddie pool and fill it up
Right.
all the way to the top. Don't do that. Like I tell them, I say, if you're gonna do like a light soak, you kind of just want to do like lukewarm water, and just up to like to its claws. That's all you really want. Like just something very, very shallow. You don't want to make them like like where they're literally just spun out like like a pool, one of those inflatables at the pool, nothing
Mm-hmm.
like that. And that's it. I only do it like unless I really, really have to, or like, if I have an animal that I've acquired, or, I've had animal that I haven't, seen, in a while, like one of my own collection that he's like really, really dusty, whatever, like that, like that. If I'm gonna do like a picture, like, if I'm gonna take a picture of an animal, and I see like, he's having like little issues with shedding, like if I see he's taking a while to shed, I still leave him alone like that, whatnot. But it's just very, very rarely. But the whole debate where like they say, oh, if you bathe your animal, it's gonna kill the animal. I mean, to say that it's gonna kill the animal, a lot of things have to happen in factor. Like to say it's gonna kill the animal. Like another thing, like people say is like, oh, if you bathe the animal, it's gonna get tail rot. Like I tell people, tail rot comes from bad husbandry. It's gonna come from when you're not giving proper ventilation in the
Yep.
enclosure. It's just you're pretty much trapping high humidity in the enclosure, and you're not letting none of that humidity escape. So it's just like, I mean, like it's crazy now that I think about it. I remember like I've had this incident where I used to talk to I had a friend, and he rescued a water monitor. And people think like, oh, what's a water monitor? It could be in water all day. No, it can't. It has to come out. It has to dry off. It has to bask. Because if it's in water all day, and if it's going to be in a really, really muggy bedding, it's eventually going to get blisters on its feet or something like that. It's going to get prone to some kind of infection. It's like
Yep.
every animal, and it needs a cool off area, and it needs a very dry area. And that's why I tell everybody with tail rot, that's where tail rot, that's where it happens. I've never had tail rot ever, and none of my animals that I've kept personally, I've never had tail rot. Like animals that I've soaked and like that, I've never had tail rot, nothing like that. Because it's like if you're providing the proper temperature, you have the proper airflow, you have everything. If you're doing everything right, you're not going to get tail rot from soaking the animal. Tail rot comes from other issues where it's just like it's not from the water. It's going to be like a lot of issues have to come and play with that, where you get tail rot, and it's definitely not from bathing. Me personally, I've never had tail rot. I've gotten animals with damaged tails, but they weren't mine personally. They already came to me that way. So it's just like, you have to obviously put the antibiotics, and you have to take it to the vet, that to
Sure.
prevent any kind of further damage like that, whatnot. But it's just like I tell everybody, tail rot is not going to be caused from from soaking. It's just not going to happen. Unless you're like literally putting a lid on top, whatever, if it's a glass cage, or you're literally closing everything up and you're not letting proper air ventilation, then it's like,
Right.
yeah, you're gonna have some kind of issues with your animal, and not just tail rot. You're gonna get other issues like that because you're not letting the proper airflow go in the cage like that. So
yeah, I've never understood how. I don't know. I just never understood how those two things got connected.
Yeah,
because I've kept a number of Uromastyx since I was a kid, and have always kind of randomly through forums and in different Facebook groups and stuff heard about things like tail rot, and it was so weird to me because I keep a really varied collection of all sorts of things, and so I do have plenty of animals that are high humidity and things like that, and those animals, amphibians, different things like that, are always the animals that, for me, I've always had to worry about. Like, the water needs to be clean. You got to have airflow, and because they're already humid and sticky and gross.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And then to hear folks talk about similar things happening in arid species, I was always so confused by that. Like, that had to be a husbandry issue, at least to me. When I heard that, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, how could that have happened? And especially, my wife and I do educational shows with a number of our animals, and so I bathe and wash off animals all the time because I'm going to show them in public. And tegus and other lizards that I have are gross and dig in the dirt and look half brown because they dyed themselves in the mulch or whatever. So I wash off any
underneath them. There's a lot of poop. So it's like you got to clean those guys up. Yeah, I totally get it.
I wash off any number of animals. I've bathed Uromastyx and things. The same way, they come out, they're a dusty little dirt ball, and then I have to go to a museum or something that expects to see an orange lizard, that I need to show them an orange lizard. And I've just never seen negative effects of that. And I just never understood how folks connected the two, unless it had to have been a secondary husbandry issue. It's just very strange to me.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna say, like, I'm not telling everybody, oh, go bathe your Euro, go do it tonight or go do it tomorrow. No, like, I'm not saying like go do that, but I'm just saying, like, it's not gonna hurt the animal if you have to bathe the animal or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm one of the few people where I can tell me like, oh, that's a bad thing you're doing. Like, I get it, it's stressful. I totally agree with that. It is stressful for the animal that it is being bathed. But there's a lot of other things that we do also as well that are stressing out the animals too. So it's like, during our possession, it's our responsibility to take care of them and everything like that. So it's like, there's a lot of things that we do that stress them out, and it's just like, we have to keep on doing what we have to do to provide, because the number one thing, like, every keeper should prioritize is their health. You always want to do what's right for the animal. You always want to prioritize their health to keep these animals long term going, especially like, these animals, they're not short-lived animals. It's not like a little,
yes, absolutely,
gosh, I don't even know. I mean, Euros, I want to say they're supposed to live about 15 to 30 years minimum, So, I mean, I know there's been Euros that have been recorded that have lived over 30 years. So it's just like, it's just, me personally, the Euros that I've received that have tail damage, it's more of a husbandry thing, especially because I know I've kept other herps before in the past. And like, I know when I used to keep the tegus, like, I know there's that big old thing with the tegus, like, especially the red tegus, like, if you don't keep the proper humidity, you're not feeding them the proper thing, they're going to lose the digits, they're going to lose their fingernails and everything like that, whatnot.
For sure.
So like, I'm kind of glad that I kept other herps before I kind of kept Euro. So like, I always knew like the bathing, there's no way that bathing's gonna, like, it's gonna make your tail, it's gonna make your Uromastyx lose its tail. It's just not gonna happen. Like, I could tell everybody, provide the proper husbandry, provide the proper temperature, airflow, everything like that, and you're not gonna have to worry about that. I'm not saying submerge your Uromastyx in this little sink. Don't do that.
Right.
But it's not gonna kill the animal, especially. So, and it's like I said, it's one of those touchy subjects where certain keepers agree with it and then other keepers are totally against it. Like I said, I kind of just stay away from those things. You know, you know how some of those Facebook groups are. They're kind of
Yeah.
very, you know, I'm just, yeah, I just stay out of it. You know, so
So,
okay.
kind of on the same idea, Ross asked, "Do
Mm-hmm.
you ever have issues with stuck shed?"
With suck shed, oh gosh, I know there's been other people that have said like, you know, you could like, you know, you could, gosh, I don't know what I've read. I think they've read like they put oil. I've never put oil on any of my lizards, nothing like that. With stuck shed, what I just do is like, especially like right now, what I've noticed right now when I've switched over to this new beach sand, um, I wash the beach sand before I put it in. Like even though it's already pre-washed or whatever that says you don't have to wash it, but I still rinsed it off and I let it dry out. But it's, you know, it still has some kind of humidity when I put it in the enclosure. So like right now, like especially right now that they're going through the spring summer shed, my
Mm-hmm.
animals, they're just shedding completely. But I've never really seemed to have an issue with stuck shed. I mean, if you're
Okay.
providing the proper temperature, you're providing the proper UVB, everything like that, and you're feeding them the correct diet, they should shed completely. I mean, don't get me wrong, every lizard's different. Some are going to shed faster than the others. But I mean, as long as you're doing everything right, you know, you don't want to peel the lizard. You never want to do that. You
Right.
know, you don't want to peel the shed. I know some people, they kind of get antsy and they just, oh, I want to help out the animal. I'm like, no, just leave it alone. Like, don't do
Yep.
anything. You know, just provide decorations for them and provide not decor you know, provide like the proper like things in the enclosure. You know, like
Sure.
you'll see the lizard, like it's gonna go up against, you know, some kind of rock or, you know, slate tile or whatever like that, whatnot. I know different people, you're using different things, you know, dried uh branches, stuff like that. And you know, like that's what I see with my Euros. You know, like I see them like they go up against their hide and you know they just rub their face and next thing you know, like by the next day it looks like if they're wearing a hood and it's just like their entire shed from their whole face. It's
Yep.
just over their head and you know under their jaw and everything like that. But no, it just it takes time. I'm gonna tell everybody just be patient with the animal. It's okay. You know, some animals are gonna shed faster than the others. You know, because especially like I said, there's so many different factors that can happen. You know, like you know every different cage, like especially with me because I have stacked cages, so it's like you know each cage is gonna have like a little different humidity than the other one and
Right.
whatnot. And you know, some like I tell everybody, you know, heat rises, so you know the top cages are always gonna be a little bit more hotter than the bottom ones and like that whatnot. But yeah, no, just as long as you know you're providing you know the proper temperature, UVB, like stuff like that. I don't seem to have any kind of shedding issues like that, whatnot.
Well,
Especially, and there's another thing you could do is especially, you know, I tell everybody, you know, to remind themselves to buy UVB once a year. You know, I don't know what kind of UVB people are. What I recommend is like I switched over to Arcadia. I want to say like maybe like 2 years ago now.
okay.
So I switched over my Arcadia bulbs every year, like that. So I just switched. I just bought my new bulbs earlier this season because I switch out every spring. So right in the beginning, before spring, I switch out all my bulbs. You know, so before breeding season comes in, I switch out all my bulbs out. So like right
Okay.
now, you know, I just switched them out. So you know, before next breeding season comes along, I'll switch them out again, like that. So I know some people say you have to switch them out every 6 months, but like I mean, I have a UVB gun, the UVB reader.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's I check the levels with that and whatnot. So yeah, no, definitely. As long as you're providing everything properly, the Euro should shed properly, you know, like I tell everybody, you know, just, you know, make sure you have the correct temperatures. You know, you have those, you know, nice 120, 125 at least for a basking zone. And that helps a lot to shed. Like I tell everybody, you know, once you have your husbandry locked in, you know, everything takes its course, you know, just goes on its own. You know, they're going to shed properly. They're going to blow up, you know, they're going to get bigger and everything like that. Whatnot.
For sure. And then you've talked a couple different times about enclosures and how
Hmm.
you your animals utilize height and things like that. And
Yeah.
Kelsey asked, since you have so many
Hmm.
different types and sizes, of course, do
Hmm.
you offer any form of enrichment, or have you in the past?
Oh, enrichment. Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, like for example, like oh gosh, I'm trying to think right now, like the smaller guys. Like the Ocelota, I do offer. I tend to put those guys in a taller cage. Same things with the Ornata. Same things with the Philby, the Yemenensis. The Princeps, I just started keeping them again. Maybe I want to say like maybe like 2 years ago. So we now have them in like 4 foot enclosures, and I do have them like maybe I want to say like 18, 20 high. Um, so yeah, I do offer a lot of things for them too, like you know, to kind of climb up and everything. Like I mentioned earlier, those species like they do seem to enjoy a lot to climb. Like especially like you know they're such small little guys, but gosh, you offer them, you know, a lot of high area to climb up, and they will use it. They will definitely use it. And you know, it's just, they're amazing. They're amazing. Honestly, you could just watch them all day. You know, climb up and down, and you know, uh, they're really great. They're really great. Honestly, like I mentioned to everybody, like I mean, like my adult Ornata right now. My last Ornata cage that I just got it was by 5 by 2 by 2, and you know, they're using every single inch of it right now. So you know, I have yeah, I just got my last 2 cages for Ornata. Yeah, they're 5 by 2 by 2s. So no, they're
Nice.
great. They're great. So I tell her to everybody, you know, I mean, I know if I were to offer them more height, they would do it. But me, because I have other animals that I'm keeping, so I kind of leave it at the 2 feet mark.
Sure.
But I know if I were to offer them like a 30-inch tall cage or something like that, even 36-inch cage, they'll use it, and I know they will. But no, definitely, yeah, like it's the same with the small guys. You know, you can offer the height to them. No, they will use it. It's amazing, you know, because especially some of these species, you know, in the wild, you know, you see them, you know, in videos, or you see them in these pictures, and they're climbing up trees. You know, they're climbing up the trees
Mm-hmm.
just to go up to the top to see the little flowers and everything, that whatnot.
Yep.
So like I tell you, know, they live in, you know, in the wild. You know, they live in the hillsides, and you know, I've seen some of those crazy videos. Like I don't know if you've seen that video from Dave Kaufman when he went to Israel,
Yep.
and he saw the Ornata, and it's just like, dude, that is insane. Like, you know, how high they're up. They're so high up there, and they're climbed up and everything, and that just blows my mind. You know, like, you know, to us, it's like we're keeping them in these little enclosures. You know, in the wild, it's like, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy that they're, you know, that these super, you know, tall hillsides and everything is, it's cool. It's really cool to see them
Well, and
like
I
that.
just
But
like that we've progressed from they're a desert lizard that sits on a rock, and so
mhm.
you keep them in a square box, to you have observed any number of species utilizing vertical space, and so you've set up enclosures to account for that. And then anybody who has any interest could see a video like Dave's where he just went over there and was like, "No,
Yeah,
yeah, I saw it in a tree. It's cool." You know, like that. That
yeah.
just would not have happened when we were younger. You know,
Oh no,
you were totally relying on some dude's advice on a forum, who was also just making it up. You know,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's come a long
That's
way.
it's crazy. It's crazy how social media has really helped out a lot. You know, like I said, you know, there's just the good and the bad. There's, like, you know, three bad things, but then there's also a lot of great things where it's like we learned. It was like, wow, you know, you know, the funny thing is, I was actually just talking to Phil the other day, Philip from Arizona. I was just telling him, it's like, man, it's so crazy, like how things have changed so much, you know, in this past few years. Like I remember, like when I first got into Euros, it's like there wasn't so much information about Euros, like, you know, when we first got into it. Because I think Philip got into the Euros like a little before me, or I want to say he got into Euros a little before me. And it's just crazy how, like, now social media like has the tools to help out a lot of the new keepers, you know, because
For
back then, you
sure.
know, like back then, you know, when I started off, it's like I started off with the glass tank, you know, like every other new person that starts off in
Yep.
the aquarium like that. And now it's like I tell everybody, you don't want to use a glass tank. That's the last thing you want to use, because all the heat is escaping to the top of the cage. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're never really keeping the proper, you know, ambient temperature. You know, the basking zone is, you know, it's never going to be at a set temperature unless you have it on the thermostat. And even then, you know, it's very hard to keep those temperatures going. The
For sure.
UVB, it's just very difficult. And now it's like everybody like seems to tell you now, like, you know, the standards, like, you know, you want to use an enclosed enclosure. You know, that's why I tell a lot of people that, you know, that message me like, oh, what do you recommend for enclosures and everything? And I tell them, very first thing I tell them, I said, you know what, before you purchase a Euro, you always want to invest in a proper enclosure for it. That's the best thing you could do. You know, if you have the proper enclosure,
For sure.
that's, you know, you're saving yourself a lot of headache. You're saving yourself a lot of time. And then, you know, the thing that's going to be thankful the most is the little animal, you know, because you're going to give it the proper husbandry. You're going to give it the proper home that it needs, you know, to thrive, you know, because, you know, you don't want, you know, when you buy a Euro, you don't want a Euro that's going to just live for you just for a year or two. You know, you want to be able to provide its proper home to live with you, you know, for a very long time. You know, these Euros should be able to grow up with you, you know, for a very long time. Like right now, like the Euro that I've had with me the longest right now, um, I've had my female Flavi. I've had her now for about 10, 11 years.
Nice.
So she's my oldest Euro I have with me, and she's still young, you know, because
Right.
when
Well,
I
yeah.
bought her, she was small, and she's still young. So, you know, I should still have her, you know, for, you know, whenever, you know, she's gonna go. But, you know, she should last me another good 10, 20 years. I mean, yeah,
For
10 to
sure.
15 years, and everything like that, whatnot. But no, they're great animals. So definitely, like I tell everybody, you know, definitely, you know, invest in the proper enclosure. You know, whether you want to buy one from a manufacturer, or you want to build your own. You know, Like luckily for me, I'm in an area where there's a lot of builders local.
Right.
I haven't had any experience ordering cages online. I always get all my enclosures locally. Like my last enclosures that I got them from a builder that's local. He's a really, really good friend. His name is Ray. He owns a building. He builds his own. That's his little business. He builds enclosures. His name's his business is Repti Homes. So he builds a lot of my wooden enclosures for
Nice.
me. So it's great. It's great. He hooks me up a lot, and he takes care of me. And you know, he knows all the stuff that I need. Like, you know, he knows I'm very particular with my cages. Like, hey, I need this and I need that. Like, these aren't basic. You know, like this isn't just a. You know, I'm not putting. I'm not saying like some other reptiles are basic, but I was just like, you know what? These are for my Euros, so you know I need like the double ceramic fixture for the heat. You know I need a T5
Right.
for the UVB, everything. So like I tell it to everybody, like, you know what? Like it might be the cost might be a lot up front, but in the long term, it's going to benefit the animal.
Yeah,
It pays off on its own, you know,
for
like,
sure.
and like I tell everybody, you know, because, you know, last thing you want to do is just get like a half decent setup. And then, you know, the animal starts declining. The next thing you know, the animal's going to go down. Then you have to go to the vet, and it's just not worth it. It's just not
Right.
worth it. Like I tell to everybody, you know, you always want to invest in a proper enclosure.
Well, and especially, you know, when you're considering species that do have such specific requirements, you know, it's just
Yes.
it's part of the game.
Yeah, no,
Um,
definitely, and
so
especially some
on,
species that aren't available as often
well,
anymore. You know,
yeah,
some
yeah,
species
you
are.
don't want to mess up because you
Yeah,
might not get another one.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
on the species front, we had a
Hmm.
question: is there a subspecies or species you suggest to new keepers
Oh
in general?
gosh, for new keepers, I would say depending on your space that you have available. If you're kind of tight on space, you don't have a lot of space to provide horizontally, like you know, lengthwise. I would kind of say stick to like ornata, ocelota. Um, Gosh, what are some other species that are being produced yearly that are kind of stay kind of small? Besides ornata and ocelota, philbies could be good too for beginners, but they're a little delicate because they need to be kept very, very warm. At least for me, like that was the philbies wasn't one of the species that I started off with when I was new. I already had a few years keeping Euros when I got into them. But that's definitely like one of the few things I tell people, like when you get into certain species, you want to keep them warm. Come wintertime, you don't want to, you know, like I said, you know, if it gets below 60 degrees, you have to put a ceramic heat emitter at night, you know, because I know like the red light, it's not a good thing, you know, to use at night for the night heat like that went on. But yeah, definitely I would say for like the smaller guys, I would probably stick to like maybe Ornata. Ornata is probably the best one to start off
Mm-hmm.
with as a beginner, Ornata and Ocelota. But if you have the room, and it is available, I would definitely say the Moroccans, Nigriventes, Bandeds, Flavia fasciata. Whether it's like here in America right now, the only species that I mean the only colors that we have available right now are the white locality. There's the orange locality, but nobody has produced them yet. So I know me and a few other friends, we have a few that we're raising up some orange localities, but they're not breeding size yet. So hopefully I want to say within the next maybe 1 to 2 years, they should start being produced. You know, same size. They get the same size as the whites, the white locality. But like I said, those guys just came in from Europe. I want to say like maybe like a few years ago, maybe like 2 years ago, 2 3 years ago. So they're still
Right.
not, you know, breeding size yet. And then for medium size, yeah, so definitely the Moroccans, the Bandits, which is like Nigriventes, Flavies. Um, if you can, Egypticus are great eaters. They're very, very good, but they just need so much room,
Right.
so much room. So that's the number one thing I always tell people. If you have the room to provide for an Egypticus, yeah, they're great. I mean, honestly, they're really, really good. When they're really, really healthy little babies, those things don't stop eating. You could literally feed that thing every single day. You feed it one day, an entire bowl. The next day, it'll eat again the same thing. It'll eat the same size bowl, everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the number one thing, like I tell everybody when it's an adult, be ready to provide at least an 8 foot enclosure. Because honestly, to me personally, I feel like if an Egypticus is kept anything smaller than an 8 foot enclosure, you're not doing. You're just not. It's just not being kept in a big enough enclosure. I just feel like anything below 8 footers kind of keeping it small. I mean, like a temporary cage, like a 6 footer, 7 footer, you can get away with it for a while. But anything below 8 feet is just too small because I mean, like I see like my adult micros right now, they're an 8x4 and I still think that's too small for them. And those are huge enclosures, you know, for Euros. But these,
Right.
keep in mind, these animals, you know, they're about already 20 plus inches right now, you know, and they're not full grown yet. So they still have a few years to go to get full grown. And it's just not, to me, my perspective, they're not, that cage is not big enough. But I just feel like if you can provide, you know, a big enough enclosure, yeah, an Egypticus can be a great first Euro, but space is the number one thing if you can provide the space for it.
Right.
But I'm not telling everybody, oh, go buy an Egypticus and then dump it off within a year and get rid of it just because you can't house it anymore. That's not right either. You don't want to do that either.
Right.
You definitely don't want to invest in an animal unless you know you can provide this proper space for it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's definitely it. But yeah, definitely, I would definitely say space, depending on that person's space, what they could provide for it in the long term permanently. I would probably say, but yeah, definitely Ornata Ocelata for the smaller guys. And then for the medium guys, I would say bandits or the flavies or the nigroventus, moliensis if they're available. Gosh, what else? What other species do I keep? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Probably those
Actually,
guys.
we had another question come through that I wanted to ask
Sure.
you because I have not seen this. Ross asked,
Sure.
"Have you ever come across a cross, a species cross, like a hybrid?"
Oh, a hybrid.
I've not seen that.
Oh gosh, me? No, I haven't actually.
Yeah, me
No,
neither.
I have not. I know they naturally integrate in the wild, but in
Yeah,
captivity, I haven't seen it happen at all. I have
yeah,
not I have not seen. Me personally, in my collection, I don't have any crosses. I haven't seen any in person either.
yeah.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that has probably accidentally or maybe, you know, experimentally cross some species together. Me personally, I don't have any crosses, and I don't. I know kind of hybriding thing is kind of like it's kind of looked down a lot in the Euro community. But no, I haven't
Well,
seen any myself.
there aren't enough. We're trying to get
Yeah,
the regular ones first.
yeah, exactly.
Then
That's what I
we'll
told everybody.
Frankenstein later.
Yeah, I don't have any hybrids or not, and I really wouldn't recommend anybody to hybridize any Euros because that's kind of something you don't want to do. Like exactly like you said, it's hard enough getting pures right now. The
Right.
last thing you want to do is mix it. You know, it's something like that, like some crazy thing. I wouldn't do it. I mean, but don't get me wrong. Like in the wild though, Ornata and Philbies, they
Yeah.
integrate. You know, they're you know, like one side of the area is Philby, the other side is Ornata. You know, the same thing happens with the Flavies. You know, the Flavies are so close to the Nigroventus. And I know with what is it, the Nigroventus are so close to the Camptonura. Not a lot of people know about Camptonura, but Acanthonura, they range from Tunisia and Algeria. But there's one area in I want to say, I think it might be Algeria, Tunisia. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's in the Thomas Won't book. You know, but like one side is like, you know, it's the Moroccans that everybody knows, the Nigroventus, and then the other side is the Camptonura. And it's an amazing species. I was able to keep some of these guys. Oh gosh, this was maybe back in like 2011, I want to say, that I got into those guys. Sadly, I lost them. They were adults. They lasted with me for a while, and I lost those guys. You know, they were imported adults. It was one of those imports that just came in one time, and that's
Yep.
it. Never again. You know, so I was just like, I was really really bummed out when I lost those guys because I don't know how old they were. I
Right.
got those from Doug Dix, and you know, Doug had them a while. He was able to produce them, and you know, who knows how old they were? You know, because they came in as already imported as adults. So to know their age, it's impossible. It would be impossible
Yeah.
unless you know you were to do the blood tests. And I don't know if it, you know, it's just yeah, it was really really unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, I know there's certain species in the wild that they do integrate, stuff like that. Like I don't know about if Yemenenses they do, because I know with Yemenenses there's also like the Yemenenses and there's Yemenensis shabraki. Well, it's like the shabraki, they come from like the western part of Yemen, and then like the Yemenenses they come from like the more eastern part, going towards like Oman, stuff like that. Um, but yeah, no, definitely. I haven't seen any and don't have any at all.
Yeah. I knew of intergrades and stuff, and I'd seen
Mhm.
pictures, you know,
Uh-huh.
in like natural history type of books and stuff, but I'd never seen it in the hobby. No.
Yeah, no,
Um,
definitely. Yeah, like you said, they're so hard and they're so rare to get as captive bred.
yeah.
I don't know anybody
Yeah.
you know, trying to hybridize them. So I
So
know I'm not. I know I'm not for sure because I mean it's already hard enough to breed these guys. purely. So yeah, definitely. I'm not doing no, like you said, no experimentations, no here.
Right. We are cruising at like an hour and 45.
Okay.
So to wrap up, where can folks get a hold of you if they want to talk more about Uromastyx and pick your brain?
Oh, sure. If you want to reach out to me, I'm mostly on Instagram. It's Desert Gem Herps. That's where I'm mostly at, is on Instagram. I also have a Facebook page, it's Desert Gem Herps also as well. And if people want to get a hold of me, that contact me for availability, they could also email me at desertgemherps@gmail.com.
Okay.
So yeah, it's I have my logo right here. I don't know
Yep.
if you can see. Yeah, Desert Gem Herps. That's where they can reach me at. It's Instagram, Facebook. I'm
Awesome.
working on a blog. I just haven't finished it yet, so I'm working on it. So hopefully, I'm trying to have it done hopefully this year. So I could just post out not like a website, but just to have post pictures of my animals, like that way people could see of my deeds. Because that's what I kind of want to do, post out pictures of my breeders, so people that are inquiring about certain blood, certain parents and stuff like that, whatnot. Um, just
That'd be
kind of
cool.
yeah, it'd be really really cool. It'd be really really cool and everything. But yeah, that's where people could reach me at.
Awesome. So when I post this, I will link all of those, and I
Okay,
will post the email so that folks will know.
okay.
Uh, and I think that's about it, man. We're good to
Well,
go.
thanks, man.
That
Appreciate it
was
so much. Thanks
awesome.
for having me here.
I'm so
Sorry
glad
if
I
I
got to
started
talk
or
to you.
if I repeated myself and everything. But thanks so much for having me here. I really, really appreciate it and everything, whatnot. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. You too. You have a good night. Thank you.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right. That was awesome. I am so glad I got to talk to him. I encourage everybody to check out his Instagram. It's ridiculous. I've been following him for quite a long time. He is always posting new stuff, all of his successes when he's breeding things, and when, as he said, it's very difficult to produce Euros, to get the eggs to produce, and then to get the eggs to hatching. Both are a difficult accomplishment. And as things work for him or don't, he posts quite a bit and shares basically every kind of information you could want for parameters and what worked for him and what didn't. He's a very open guy, and it's really cool to see just how rare that is in the very small friend group that he had spoken about for people that work on that type of lizard, and then how open they are about sharing stuff. Because there really aren't that many of them who are doing the things that he's doing, and then to share it the way that they do on social media, I think is super cool. So I will end this by telling everyone to keep an eye out for more Herpeticulture Network stuff. The guys from the Herpeticulture podcast went herping in West Texas with the folks from Morelia Python Radio, and I'm pretty sure they are back. I think they came home this weekend, and I know the folks from NPR were already posting that THP and NPR are going to do a joint episode, and I think they're going to recount their time in West Texas. I know their personal Facebooks and stuff are already starting to populate with all the cool pictures they had and the things that they found. So that's going to be awesome. And I would encourage everyone, as usual, to support USARK. The Not Tinley in Schaumburg, Illinois is coming up here in June, and I will be floating around there. You kind of can't miss me. I'm a bald dude with a big red beard. I'll probably have a random reptile shirt on, and there will most likely be a lady with multicolored hair who I'm married to, and 3 kids following me around. We all kind of pile into NARBC. We usually are there supporting Friends of Scales Reptile Rescue or some other cause. So I will definitely be floating around that. If you guys happen to be there, look me up, come talk to me, show me some cool lizards, random stuff like that. If you guys are going to be at the auction Saturday night, I don't know if anybody has been to Tinley or not who listens to my podcast, but you should definitely go to the auction if you're able to. It's ridiculous. It's a great time. I just highly encourage everyone to check it out. It always goes to support USARK. Year to year, there are other causes they'll help support. It's usually typically someone in need. If there were, we've had a few house fires or folks that have had healthcare issues and things like that. And so the auction occasionally will have a separate section to support someone in need, which is, it's cool to sit in a group in a conference hall or a banquet hall and have a bunch of people I don't know that, or faces from Facebook and faces from YouTube that you had kind of seen here and there, or breeders and just a bunch of randoms that came shopping with you at the event that day, and then we all go to the auction, hang out, and they spend an exceptional amount of money usually to support other folks. It's really cool. It's a really good time. And as far as the USARK section of it goes, Phil and the folks from USARK are usually, well, that I've ever been, they're there. Like you could actually go hang out and talk to him at NARBC. You can meet those folks and ask about what they're doing, and they'll hang out and talk to you. They're great. They're all actually really cool people to sit and talk to. So I would encourage everyone who's able to attend events like that to do so. It really helps push the community aspect of herpetoculture, and I personally really enjoy it. So I would encourage you guys to check that out as well. So I will end here, and we will see you again in another 2 weeks. Later.